Up, it's Greg. Here's my new interview with director Rodney Ascher. His latest documentary is called A Glitch in the Matrix. It comes out Friday in theaters and I was going to say virtual cinemas, that's not true, in theaters and on demand. And the main focus of this documentary is the idea of that we might be living in a simulation. Elon Musk has posited that theory. There's an old interview with an archival interview with author Philip K. Dick talking about the idea of, well, we might be programs, we might be our own version of a video game. So that's the main idea behind the documentary. The Matrix is prominently featured as well in the documentary. So anyways, it's a very quick interview. It's only 8 minutes, and if you're interested in this idea of us maybe living in a simulation world, check out A Glitch in the Matrix, directed by Rodney Ascher. He's also done the film Room 237. I think it's an exploration of the Stanley Kubrick film The Shining. First off, Rodney, I'm so old, I actually did the junket for The Matrix, the press junket for The Matrix. Wanted to know personally your own thoughts on the film before we get to your expansive documentary. Did you first see it as an entertainment value film, and did it grow deeper for you as as a cinephile as the years progressed?
Yeah, no, I mean, I saw it as a unbelievably cathartic and visually kind of mind-blowing action science fiction movie. At that time, I was really into electronic music and um, science fiction and comics, and I was the kind of nerd who knew the concept artist Jeff Darrow, who drew a lot of the illustrations that inspired the Matrix. So I mean, I was all there for the scale of it and for the that sort of next generation of sort of Hong Kong stunt work, because I was a fan of John Woo's The Killer, and of that first wave of Hong Kong cinema, and then to see it done and that on such a scale with such amazing, beautiful details, it just blew me away. And the whole notion of waking up in the pods and the real world and the fake world, was something that as someone who had grown up on the Twilight Zone, I was all in for. I was completely ready for it.
Yeah, you mentioned the Twilight Zone. That movie, that series was really ahead of its time. It's ahead of its time today. Rod Serling's original vision. Why do you think the idea that we may live in a simulation? Why do you think that some people really scoff at that? Do you see a lot of people not seeing the entire big picture? As far as putting the patterns together, the idea of synchronicity, the Mandela effect, all that stuff, or do you think people just really cling to their idea of what reality is a little bit too much to not open up that playbook as far as life goes?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, people that I hang out with are happy to entertain are happy to entertain that idea. Um, though, I've got no idea whether the majority of people entertain it as something plausible or dismiss it, as something ridiculous. I know that having grown up with watching old episodes of Twilight Zone, anytime that I would see a story that broke the fourth wall, I'm thinking of, was it five characters in search of an exit, four characters in search of an exit in the original series, and then there was the one where the actor, sort of came to in the middle of a scene, and he was the character, but he's now in the world where they're filming the TV show. That just all those things always resonated with me in a way, that, and for a reason that I don't entirely, understand. But looking at the last couple of years of history, where things seem to be getting stranger, more surreal, more ridiculous, and more horrifying. I think simulation theory makes a certain sense for people. How did things get this way? Well, here's maybe an explanation. It couldn't possibly be random chance.
Philip K. Dick is a big part of your documentary. And obviously, they say he was ahead of his time. But is that one reason why his work today still resonates, whether it be just reading the book, the material itself, or how it translates into cinema and in television? Because what he was talking about is not just science fiction. He's talking in many ways about the reality, the world we live in today. Is that what makes his work still stand out, no matter what year we're talking about?
Yeah, well, I mean, in some ways, I think he was patient zero for 21st century, what anxieties that he was, he was getting freaked out around the edges about things that are all too common now. Questions of identity, reality, um, privacy, fascism, things that, like, one of the things that always strikes me looking at that speech and when he talks about living in a computer controlled society in the 70s is that computers in the 70s looked like refrigerators with giant spinning reels of magnetic tape and punch cards, and the computer graphics were pixels that were each 2.5 inches across. And it seems like to make the leap that they would be capable of creating a three-dimensional reality seems impossible by today's standards. And Elon Musk talks about it in that press conference that we include in the movie. We don't have the technology to build a completely realistic seeming digital reality yet, but you can see it from here, which goes a long way to making it sound, making it seem plausible.
I really enjoyed your section on NPCs and gaming. And
Yeah.
back in the day, I'm 49 now. I don't game as much as I did back in my 20s. But now with these new generation of gamers, sometimes gamers, the way they get their thrills or excitement is to watch other people play now, which I find as an old head amazing. But just from your point of view, Rodney, do you see at its apex creatively, do you see gaming as a way that some people, if used correctly or really in an insightful manner, can really connect us to our humanity, as opposed to a lot of what naysayers say about gaming in the big picture?
Well, for me, the big thing about gaming and what's changed about it, from when I was, when I was a kid, the idea of interactive online was, impossible. But I guess we still would go to each other's houses, and if whoever had the Intellivision or the first Sega, whoever had the newest, greatest game, that would be a hub where, you'd have 8 kids circled around the TV, and even if only one of them is playing, this was, the building of a community. And, my son plays, a lot of video games, a lot of networked games. And, one thing I've realized pretty quickly that video games today aren't just games. They're places, they're places where people meet socially. And they're also studios, where YouTubers and Twitch streamers and, 100 other, and what do you call it?
Oh, so what, streamers or?
Streamers, I'm thinking these people who make, narrative films on game platforms, machinima, that, you know, it's also a studio. It's also an animation studio, that um, games aren't any one thing. And especially this last year, when everybody's been, in quarantine, they've been a godsend for people to be able to, reach out and connect with each other.
Rodney, thank you so much for your time. Really enjoyed your documentary.
Good to talk to you, Greg. Thanks.
All right, take care.